Welcome everybody back to another episode of the Power of Story podcast. I am Dashaun, Vice President of Self-Publish in 30 Days. I'm here today with my man Harris Fanaroff. What's going on, Harris?
What's up, Taj? Fired up to be on here, man. Looking forward to our conversation.
Oh man, it's a pleasure to have you. It's been a pleasure getting to know you over these past several weeks or months. I guess it's been now. I'm glad we got introduced to each other. I don't want to waste any time. You know how we do it on this show. We want to dive into the story. But just for the listeners, I'm going to give Harris a quick introduction, a quick background, and then we'll just find out how this man became the man that he is today and how he's doing all these great things for athletes, which is why we connect. So Harris works full-time as a director of client relationships for Otto Kroger Associates, which specializes in emotional intelligence, leadership development, and organizational development. He currently serves as a co-chair of the Washington National's Philanthropy's Emerging Leaders Board and is a member of the board for Strive, How You Lead Matters. Recently, Harris also launched Athlete Roadmap, which I'm sure we will get into. But first things first, Harris, can you just kind of talk us through how your we'll call it a love affair with baseball began, and then walk us through how that led up to everything you're doing now, serving athletes and coaching.
Cool. Well, I appreciate Tosh. Thanks for giving me the microphone to talk about it. I like sharing my story with the idea that if I can share my story and it affects one person in a positive way to help them move through something, I consider that a success. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. Grew up outside Washington, D.C. My story always has been revolved around sports in some way or another. I was the youngest of three boys. Two of the brothers were really, really smart, and my way of differentiating myself was as an athlete. So I would play any sport under the sun, but baseball was really the one that I got hooked on. It was the one that I was the best at. It was the one that was going to help me achieve my goal of playing college sport. And so around sixth grade, I decided, hey, I'm going to do everything in my power to be able to play Division I sports. I'm going to wake up early. I'm going to eat healthy. I'm going to work out all the time. Like, I'm going to start to go towards that goal of playing Division I sports. Nobody in my family up to that point had really played Division I sports. It was something that was really important to me. And so I worked really hard. I ended up getting drafted out of high school in the 50th round by the Washington Nationals as a pitcher and first baseman. It was the 50th round, as I just mentioned, so it wasn't a lot of money at all, and instead decided to turn that down and go to Lehigh University and play baseball up there in the Patriot League. Division I university, go be a pitcher there. I got to Lehigh, super excited, had a really good fall, and then in the spring I got the yips. And how I like to describe the yips is when your brain and your arm stop talking. And so I essentially lost the ability to throw freshman year, spring season on the mound, just sweating, struggling, couldn't do it. After that pretty traumatic experience, I tried to figure it out. I really couldn't. I tried on my own. I would just get in my own head and just keep going spiraling more and more. And I just really forgot how to throw. So I stopped pitching. I had a bad relationship with pitching, and I said, I'm going to come back as a first baseman outfielder. I had actually a really good summer as a first baseman outfielder. Did okay in the season, never really got up to that same level that I was at as a pitcher, and ended up quitting baseball my junior year. I stopped loving it. I actually started to hate baseball, to be honest. I would not look forward to going to it, and it was a really dark, troubling time. I struggled from an identity issue. I'd always described myself as a baseball player, and I was no longer a baseball player. So that last year at college was tough from an identity perspective for me. I was like, what do I do now? I didn't really know what to do from a job perspective. I just kind of found a healthcare sales company through, had 5 knee surgeries. So it was through actually talking with somebody at the physical therapy place. And she said, my daughter works there, likes it. I said, okay, I'll give it a shot. So I worked there for a couple of years, and I liked it, but I didn't necessarily love it. I thought, hey, there's got to be more out there for me. I'm a pretty passionate person. I want to find what my passion is. So I reached out to anyone in my network, anyone connected to anyone in my network, and just said, hey, I just want to learn about what you do, what it is that you do. Maybe there's something that I'll find in those conversations that'll be helpful for me that I can then take to what I want to do and want to become. And probably 50th, 75th conversation was a guy named Brian Levinson, who was a mental performance coach and sports psychologist. And I didn't know much about sports psychology. I would have been the perfect person for it. I was relatively gifted physically and worked hard, and then pretty poor mentally as an athlete. So I was interested in some of the stuff that he was talking about and saying. and he was going through a leadership coaching program. And as part of that, had to take on a client. He said, "Hey, Harris, would you want to be part of this?" I said, "I don't really know much about this, but you seem like a good guy, and I'd love to get to know you better. So let's do it." And it was a life-changing experience for me. I went through 10 sessions with them. It was amazing. I said, "I want to go do this work for other people." I then went and got certified as a leadership coach. And then the next step was, how do I find a way that I can do this out in the world? And so I found Otto Kroger Associates, where I get to mix my marketing and sales with the coaching, the leadership development stuff. And then now also have a little side hustle, athlete roadmap, with one of my good buddies, Seb Little, that we just started serving athletes in transition.
Man, that's awesome, Harris. Thank you for sharing all of that, man. And I'm going to be selfish for a second for all the listeners who are listening on Thrive After Sports, because something that I think isn't necessarily talked about enough is the disappointment, or handling the disappointment of not having the career that you envisioned for yourself, right? And I know a lot of that was probably processed and transformed through your coaching. But can you just speak on that a little bit? Because I know even me personally, right? I had I guess you can consider it the yips in football as well, because I had a coach, and right from freshman year, let's just say he wasn't a player's coach, right? So a lot of screaming, a lot of yelling, not a lot of teaching going on, and I wasn't used to that. So that actually shut me down. And I know several other players, through conversations I'm having, are disappointed through their college career and how it turned out, or kind of got in their own heads. Can you just talk about the process of like healing from that disappointment?
Yeah, it's a great question. I appreciate you bringing that up. I wish that the world was a little bit more open to having these types of conversations. I'll say, one, I feel okay with where I'm at. I feel good with where I'm at, but I'd be lying to say if it's not something that still creeps into my head every so often that I'm disappointed in. So one, I'll just hit on that and say it doesn't necessarily go away. And how I think about what I'm doing right now, without a giant failure, as a quote failure, as a college baseball player, I wouldn't be doing where I'm at. I wouldn't be able to be helping people with what I'm helping them with. I wouldn't be talking with you. I wouldn't be serving people from a leadership development standpoint. I really don't think I'd be where I'm at from a personal standpoint or from a job standpoint. And so when I think about that, and what I always remind myself is that any great success has a giant amount of failure that's accompanying it. And so everybody that's really ever achieved anything big in their life, they've had some relatively big failure. And for me, maybe this was my big failure that's helping me achieve and get to where I wanted to be. And so those would be my 2 big points, is one, that I feel that, I recognize it. It's actually helped me to talk about it. I think I used to just keep it in big time. And anybody talk about your experience as a college baseball player, I'd be like, yeah, no, like don't bring that up, man. Like, I don't want to talk about it. And now I'm pretty open about sharing my story, because I've had people like yourself just now that connect with it. And if we can just have a conversation with it and know that we're not alone, it can be really beneficial, because when we think we're alone, that's when we keep spiraling, which is when it can get scary. So that's something that's helped me, man, but I'm always learning from other people. I'm curious for your perspective, man. What's helped you kind of get through that quote failure?
Man, I think, because I was like you, man, in the sense where I wouldn't even want to talk about it. Just even hearing the sound of the whistle, you know what I mean? Like, I remember when I first moved back home with my folks after college, and Saturday mornings, my dad would be watching college football, and I would hear the sound of that whistle and just immediate frustration, immediate anxiety. And what got me through it, man, was time, right? Time heals all. And like you just said, really connecting with other people and understanding that a lot of people were going through a similar experience, which I didn't do at first, because I was just kind of suffering in a vacuum. And you know how we get, man, athletes are prideful people. So,
right.
But yeah, man, I think a lot of just processing and learning to be proud of my accomplishments, I mean, we played at an elite level, right? And that was what the goal was from the beginning. So I think a lot of things are out of our circumstances, or out of our control, even if it is from a mental perspective. But yeah, man, a lot of processing, a lot of having to go internally and remind myself to be proud of myself, if that makes sense, No,
that makes a ton of sense. I think that's such a huge thing. And I love that you hit on that. It's like, I mean, I struggled with this even from a career perspective. It's the desire to always want to keep getting better and hit the next goal and achieve the next accomplishment is great. until it becomes too much, in the sense of too much of a good thing can be a bad thing when it's not combined with appreciating and enjoying the success that we're having. And so I deal with a lot of high achievers, whether that be in sport or in business, and they're always trying to hit that next thing, which is really good. But we got to take some time to appreciate the success and all the things that we've done, and have those little reminders of like, hey, I accomplished this, I did this, and you got to take that time. Otherwise, it can be exhausting, and you're just constantly on that never-ending treadmill. In a sense, I love that you brought that up.
Yeah, man. I really love all the work that you've done. I always instantly connect with someone like yourself who has gone through their own healing journey, has had someone else heal them, and then immediately gone into the mindset of, okay, I want to pay that forward, right? So can you talk to me about what was that shift for you? I know you had, you were working with the coach, you had the shift, and then you're going into, I want to help others. How did you even get started? What was that process like for you?
Yeah, so I mentioned a little bit before, but it was lucky in the sense of who I got connected to. This guy just happened to be, well, lucky. I created my own luck in a way, man. Like, this was not the first conversation. This was the 50th or 75th conversation that I had.
Right.
And one of the things, just to hit on our other point, we talked a lot about my quote failure as a baseball player. And one of the most helpful exercises we did was, what did you learn from being a quote failure in baseball? And I wrote 30 different things that I learned from that experience. Some of them that I love the relationship that I get with my teammates. And that's really what drove me as a baseball player, that this taught me how to deal with adversity, that this taught me how to deal with difficult people, how to deal with difficult situations, how to bounce up from being in a low, like 30 different things, no joke, that I was able to write down, that I just never really took the time to, that nobody had given me the space and asked me the right questions and helped me do the work for myself. And so that was a really eye-opening experience for me. And then it was like, so what are you going to do with understanding this? And I think that the world becomes a better place when we use our failures to help other people. And so that was my way of doing this. Like, this type of experience, this coaching experience that I went through helped me so much that I said, if I can give somebody else what you've done for me, like, I'll be happy in life, man. Like, I think the best thing we can do is help other people. And I tell you, the best things that I get are the texts from after working with athletes or working with business people saying, hey, what can I get to change my life? And like, man, that's the best text. It's the best thing I can get. I take screenshots of it, and when I'm having a bad day or when I'm having a tough day, it's like, hey, at least I'm making a difference in someone's life. And to me, that's what it's all about. And so it's a little bit about how I got to where I'm at.
That's awesome, Harris. And I'm really loving this conversation, man, because you're really diving into the methodology behind your coaching. And I think that exercise, and I know you pay that forward with a lot of the athletes and just people in general that you're working with, that exercise about what did you learn from your failure, that's profound, man. I really like that. I do a lot of that work as well. I basically call it like reminding athletes that they're still role models, and getting them to be proud of their accomplishments, like we were just talking about. Because the reason I think that exercise was so powerful for you, and I think it's so great that you pay that forward, is because you hear a lot of talk about transferable skills, right? You were great at time management or discipline or working with the team. And I think all that stuff is great. I'm not knocking that. But I think that the difference between talking to an athlete about their transferable skills and the work that you're doing, the major difference is that it's not like, okay, you have all these things, now you can apply these to your next job situation or to business. It's like saying, let's take a step back and just acknowledge all the things that you learned for you, not to go off, run off in another direction and try this, but just for your own peace of mind and your own self-acknowledgement and appreciation. Super powerful stuff, man. So go ahead, please. I just want to.
No, I was just saying, I love where you're going with that, because, like, yeah, you want someone to bring, as an athlete, everything they've learned into their corporate job, but it's also like you want to bring everything that you learned as an athlete into your life and yourself. Like, it's helpful for me to talk about how I work well with the team when I'm in a job interview, or how I'm resilient when I work in a job interview. But like, also, man, it's just as important when you're thinking about yourself in your own life. Like, you're on so many different quote teams, and you know how to be a good teammate. Like, you know how to communicate with people. And there's so many transferable skills that not only help you with your job, but also help you with your life. So I love that you hit home on that. And it was a powerful exercise for me. And I'll tell you what, athletes very often don't know how much they've learned as being an athlete. And you sometimes got to really pull that out of them in order to get that. A lot of times they just think, man, like, it's what I've always done. And it's like, well, what you've always done isn't necessarily status quo for everybody out there in the world. And so understand that you're bringing a lot to the table, both from a self perspective and to help the broader group.
That's huge, man. I feel like we could do a totally separate episode on just this acknowledgement of self and, celebrating yourself. So anybody listening right now, any former athletes, like, obviously reach out to Harris, of course, but in the meantime, what you can do, take his advice. Don't skip past this and just listen to this as another podcast episode. Make that list of all the things that you're proud of and everything you learned from the game. I was talking to Quentin Williams, Coach Q,
Yeah.
the man who connected us. Got to give him some credit for even putting us in touch. One of the things that I was talking to him about the other day, and I really like how he goes into celebrating yourself, which comes from this list that you're talking about. Why do you think it is that, I don't know if it's maybe just a guy thing or just an athlete thing, but why do you think it is sometimes that we have so much trouble celebrating ourselves, not only during our playing days, but afterwards?
It's a really good question. I think you're always wired as a high achiever, whether you're in business or in sport or whatever you're in, to want to hit that next thing. When we're in high school, we want to be all state. When we're all state, we want to be at Division I. When we're at Division I, we want to be in the NFL, in the MLB, or whatever it is. And we're not really wired to enjoy our success. I just think that it takes time. It takes being intentional. It takes working with somebody to say, hey man, like you're on, like, quick, like, slow down a little bit, enjoy a little bit about what you're doing. You got to enjoy the process. If you're only enjoying the results, like, you're going to struggle. And because there's always going to be that next thing that you can reach for. Always, no matter what. Even if you're at the top of your craft, there's going to be something better that you can go after. And so you need that constant reminder to enjoy and be happy with what you're doing. And very often we don't want to do that for ourselves. We need somebody, a significant other, a sibling, a parent, a friend, to say, hey man, like, you're having a lot of success, like, enjoy it. Like, yeah, keep working and take some time for yourself. Do some things that you enjoy. Like, decorate your space with things that are important to you, things that you've accomplished. Like, you've accomplished a lot. And so you got to celebrate that a little bit. Otherwise, it's just, you're on that hamster wheel, always spinning. Not normal for us to want to do that.
I love that, Harris. That's great wisdom right there. Great advice. And I appreciate you sharing that, man. I really want to dive into athlete roadmap because it's clear that you're a coach. It's clear that you know what you're talking about. It's clear that you're having an impact on people. And I know that athlete roadmap is bigger than just Harris Fanaroff, the man, the coach. This is an actual structure. There's systems in place. Can you just talk about, just from a high level view, what athlete roadmap is all about?
Yeah, happy to. And thank you, Todd, for giving me a microphone to talk a little bit about it. So athlete roadmap is all about serving athletes in transition. And we think about that in three specific ways: from high school to college decision-making, from mental performance, getting you from good to great, and from college to career. And so we serve athletes in all three of those different avenues. And it was founded by me and a friend that I've gotten into this world in the mental performance coaching space, who was a Yale football player. So we bring Yale football and Lehigh baseball together into a coaching process. And so the way that it's a little bit different than what maybe is out there is that we take a coaching mentality. And by that, I mean, we're asking a lot of questions and you have the answers inside of you. I'm not telling you, hey, this is the college program that's right for you, or this is the career that's right for you. But I want to understand, what's your why? What drives you? What motivates you? What are your values? Like, that's going to be different for you, Todd. It's going to be different for me, Harris. It's going to be different for John on X team. And it's all about providing the space and learning from one another. And so we're just finishing up working with Yale University football right now, helping their juniors and seniors figure out what it is that they want to do as their next step. And it's an awesome experience. We share some different worksheets and best practices. We share a lot of failures that we made and hope that people can learn from it. It's little things like creating a LinkedIn. What does your LinkedIn profile look like? What is your personal brand that you want to get out there? What separates you from the other guys on the team or other girls on the team? And asking those really good questions and saying, oh man, like pretty fascinating to learn. That's how I show up with the world, and that's how other people see me. So it's been a great experience, a couple months in, and we're fired up for where it can go.
Yeah, man, I'm fired up for you. I remember the first time you shared it with me. And the thing about it is, at this time, there are a lot of programs and stuff like that popping up who, work with athletes, whether it's from high school to college or college to careers afterwards. The thing I love about what you're doing, though, and you just said it right now, is that it's not cookie cutter. It's customized. There's no one size fits all for any transition in life. Everyone's unique. Everyone's different. And I love that you touched on that, because everyone thinks they have, the solution, the end all be all for transition. You just follow these 7 steps and, like, and I don't want to sit here and bash anybody, but what I'm really getting at is just, I appreciate the people like yourself who actually take the time to understand that there is no cookie cutter and give that specialized, individualized attention. And it's really about helping people discover for themselves, right?
Exactly.
When it's all said and done, that's the methodology. It's not about, sorry, go ahead, Harris.
No, no, you're exactly right. That's what it's all about. Like, we have ideas, we have thoughts, we have maybe suggestions, but for the most part, man, we're asking some big time questions that often we don't take the time to answer, because we're always moving. And it's like, all right, like, what do I really want in a career? Like, what's important to me? And that's going to be very different than what's important to the guy who's next to me on the offensive line, or the guy who's lining up the wide receiver. Like, that's going to be different for everybody. And very often we're just like, oh, I'll just apply to some job that I see on LinkedIn or Indeed, or I'll just go to that school because the guy 2 years older than me was pretty similar and he's playing there, so I'll like it. But it's like, no, man, we all got our own individual things that are important to us. And you often need somebody to ask you those questions and give you that space to answer it, which is what our coaching is all about. We have some guidance. I'll share my mistakes. I'll share things that I did wrong, things that I maybe think I did right. But at the end of the day, like, what works for you, Taj, can be different than what works for me. It's all about asking the right questions. That's what we're all about.
That's it, man. That's it. I love it. And what is the future? We can talk long term or just short term, immediate future. Where is Athlete Roadmap going? How do you see it growing and expanding? And what's like the ultimate impact that you want to have with the movement?
It's a good question. Another good question, man. You're full of them. You're full of them. Full of good questions. I think if we can help athletes move from one step to the next, we're doing what we want to do. I think we all have experience in struggles, whether it be from high school to college, from a mental performance, or from college to the real world. And if we're providing people the skills, giving them the space, and doing what we can to help athletes move from one thing to the other, we'll be doing the work that we want to do. I think a lot of it comes with the vulnerability of, hey, I didn't have as good of a college career that we've been talking about, and normalizing that that's okay. And normalizing that it's okay to not love your first job out of college or make the wrong first college decision. Everybody makes mistakes. I think being vulnerable is important to share and be open about. And so we're all about serving athletes in transition. If we end up doing mostly college to career, high school to college, mental performance, like, we're good with wherever that goes. We're just kind of getting our story out there and seeing who's interested in learning. And we've had a really good experience with Yale football, and we're excited for what's going to come out with other programs out there. So who knows, man? But we're excited and fired up, and we figure if we keep doing the work that we love, it'll end up going somewhere that we're excited about.
Indeed, man. And one of the things that I initially really liked about it from our first conversation is that you have intertwined the two, meaning the transition from high school to college and then college to afterwards, because the two are interconnected. So, and I know a lot of organizations work with one or the other. So I think it's cool that you have some, you're helping them get prepared for both stages, because honestly, you and I could have used that high school to college work, which would have impacted the college career, which would have impacted life afterwards. So I think that's a major key, man, that you have included that. And I like to just kind of know, man, just some general advice from you, because you're in a good place in your life. You're at a point where not only have you carved out a lane for yourself to become successful, and fulfilled, which is part of success, not just financial success. And I think that it's important to get as many different perspectives as possible to former athletes, and hearing from former athletes. So I just like to hear from you, man. Give some advice to that athlete who's struggling right now. Just maybe their season was canceled. Maybe they're in their first job and they hate it. And maybe they can't find a job. They're going on Indeed every day, like we talked about. Can you just give some advice to that person right now?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think first, if your season was canceled, if you're struggling, know that the world is struggling right now. I think understanding that you're not alone is a really important first step. And it's okay to talk about it. Find somebody that you trust, whether it's a coach, whether it's a friend, whether it's a significant other. You can just talk and share and be vulnerable with it. Because I think when we keep that inside of us, nobody benefits, and it's really tough. And I mean, I think honestly, as big male athletes or just male athletes, it's not quote cool to talk about some of our struggles and things that we're doing that aren't up to our standards, especially. So I think one is just being open, being vulnerable, finding someone that you can trust with. I think two, and this has served me pretty significantly the older I've gotten, and I've gotten better at it. But I hate the term networking, but relationship building is what I like to use instead. And if you're in a mindset of always creating relationships, always trying to find new people to connect with, I mean, similar, man, to how we got connected. I think I just reached out to Q. I had a great conversation with Q. He put me in touch with you. Here we are talking. Like, you truly never know where things can go. And so I'm always open to talking with anybody that I think will be a good conversation. I don't go in there with any expectations, man. Like, there could be some form of partnership that we have 15, 20 years down the road, or my kid needs something 20 years down the road, or your brother needs something. Like, you never know, man. And that's the type of mentality that I go in. I go in with curiosity. I want to learn as much as I can about you, and I leave with gratitude. Thank you so much for your time. What can I do to help you? And so I just am all about relationship building. That's what my why is. I want to create many powerful relationships. It's going to help me make this place a better world. And I think that that's actually something that's really served me, is being more intentional about that. One thing that I love to do, and it's pretty straightforward, but it's just, man, anytime anybody that I've connected with comes into my mind, there's something that reminds me of that. A podcast, article, I'm just thinking about Northwestern football, or I watched them on TV, or whatever it is, man. I shoot that person a text like, hey, man, just thinking about you, or hey, just saw this, thought you'd enjoy it. It's something that's really helped me, and doesn't take too much time, takes 20 seconds, but that's been a big thing that's been important to me, because you really never know where a relationship, where a contact's going to take you. And I truly deep down believe that. I think it's been a big part of what's helped me get to where I'm at right
now. Oh, man. So many gems in that, man. So many gems, Harris. Like I love that you talked about relationship building versus networking. I think networking has become one of those dirty words that people shy away from, or networking to some people means copying and pasting and sending people stuff on LinkedIn in their inbox versus trying to build that genuine relationship. I mean, like you said, man, even when you first came across your coach, you said that was like the 50th or 60th person you had reached out to, and right. You came across someone like that. So I think that's key, man, because what I've seen, and I'm sure you've seen this too with a lot of athletes, either they exist in their own bubble because they may be going through something, they don't know how to reach out and build relationships, or they're going about it the wrong way, which is rather than just building that connection and nurturing the relationships, like you're saying, they're just trying to get something, or trying to pick someone's brain. You should never reach out to someone and say, hey, I just want to pick your brain. All right, let's get that out the way for all you former athletes. Like, I don't want my brain picked. Think about that doesn't sound right, man. But if you reach out to someone saying, hey, I'd love to connect with you and have a conversation and see how we can serve and support one another, like Harris is saying, then that could take you far. Yeah. Obviously, we both benefited from that. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think it's just going in there without an expectation. You just hit the nail on the head. It's like, I don't expect anything when I connect with somebody. Like,
mm-hmm.
I know that maybe something down the line will happen, and if not, cool. I got a friend, I got someone I can call on, and I love, I mean, providing value to somebody else. Maybe there's something that I have that I can do that'll be helpful, some connection that I can make. And so I'm all about that. I truly believe in the power of relationships, the power of connection, and I think that that's been a big aspect for me. But I will add, like, I'm an extrovert, so I am relatively extroverted at heart. But like, I don't have a desire really to go to a 300-person conference and just talk to everybody in it. Like, even as an extrovert, like, that gives me anxiety. But like, if there's a way I can create a connection on LinkedIn, on Twitter, like, I like what somebody's posting and I just want to connect with them and see where that can go. Like, that's more what I want to do. So everyone can find what it is that's going to work for them. Like, maybe go through and you just start with like your small bubble, and like, you get a little bit further, a little bit further, a little bit, like, there's ways to do it that way, where I'm maybe at the point now I'm more comfortable where it's, I'll reach out to somebody randomly on LinkedIn, but I didn't start that way, man. Like, it was first like, he had to be a friend of my cousin, or he had to be a friend of something, like, in order for me to do it. And just know that it gets better with practice and working on it. It's just like everything else in life. So that's been a big thing for me.
Awesome, man. Awesome. And speaking of relationships and connecting and, building those relationships, man, how can people get in contact with you? How can people learn more about Athlete Roadmap? Just talk to me about some of that stuff. I know people are going to be seeking you out after listening to this interview, man.
Well, I appreciate it. And exactly like you mentioned, I'd love to be contacted. I'm on all forms of social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at Harris Fanaroff. LinkedIn is where I'm actually where I post the most. So Harris Fanaroff. And then if you want to see some of the work that we're doing, check us out, athleteroadmap.com. And then I can be reached via email if people are interested in that, harris@athleteroadmap.com. And I appreciate you giving me a microphone, man. You're doing awesome stuff. I've been so excited that I've gotten a chance to connect with you. I'm grateful for you and the work that you're doing. You getting people to share their stories is making the world a better place. So Tosh, thank you, man, for doing all the amazing work that you're doing. Sincerely.
Thank you, brother. It's been an absolute pleasure, man. Nothing but good things have come from our connection. And it's just the beginning, man. We're both just getting started with the impact that we're looking to have. And I'm super excited, man. Like, I don't take it lightly. I wouldn't just have you on the show just to have you on here, man. I really do respect what you're doing. Not only the work you're doing, but who you are as a man and just your general spirit, man, that comes through. So much respect to you, brother.
I appreciate it, my man. I'm excited to see where this can go. You never know where relationships can go. And I'm looking forward to continued conversations, and I appreciate you giving me the microphone here. And I encourage people to check you out too, and all the work you're doing, because you're doing awesome stuff, brother.
Thank you, man. I do have one final question for you before we wrap up. By the way, everybody listening, all Harris's contact info, in case you missed it, that will be in the show notes. So please tap in with Harris, check out Athlete Roadmap, all that good stuff. But my final question for you, man, is, 70, 80 years from now, when you leave this earth, what do you want your legacy to be? How do you want to be remembered in this world?
I want to be remembered as somebody who left the world a better place than when we first got here. And I think that comes through building a network, supporting people. And I want anybody that comes in contact with me to have a good, positive interaction. But I think about that all the time. And I love that the work that I get to do from a leadership perspective, from an organizational perspective, helps to make people better people, that then has a lasting impact, because then people they interact with are better people. So it's something that I think about all the time, like what will be on my legacy plaque, that I left the world a better place than when I first started. I think if I take that type of mentality into every day of my life when I wake up, and I'm grateful to have another day every time I wake up, then I can hopefully accomplish that. But I appreciate you asking, man. It's something I think about all the time.
I can tell, man. I like how you took a second just to let it process and think it through. That was awesome, man. Thank you for sharing that. That was huge. Man, all right. This is even better than I expected, man. I should have known it was going to be great interviewing you. But this has been another great episode of the Power of Story podcast. I hope you were able to listen to Harris's story, find yourself in it. learn from all the advice and wisdom that he's given. If you're listening on Thrive After Sports, I hope that you were able to understand that there is a path for you, there is a lane for you, and there are people who are willing to help you get there, like Harris, doing great work, and you will find a new path for yourself. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Get in touch with my man Harris, and we'll see you on the very next episode.
Thanks, Tosh.